There's a feeling that many of us who have passed the 35-year-old milestone quietly understand. It's not a loud, screaming crisis. It's more subtle than that. It's a Monday morning, as you're making your coffee, looking out the window, and a quiet question surfaces in your mind: is this it? It's the feeling you get when you look at the career you've spent decades building, the family you love, all the achievements you were taught to desire, and you still feel a nameless void. It's not ingratitude. Not at all. It's a deeper whisper, a wonder if the path you're on is truly your own. Or is it the path that society, family, and invisible expectations have laid out for you? That sense of aimlessness, it isn't loud, but its weight is incredibly real. It quietly steals the joy from the small things and replaces it with a chronic fatigue. For centuries, philosophers have grappled with this very question. And one school of thought, born from the harsh trials of ancient Greece and Rome, offered an answer that is not only profound but also intensely practical. That is Stoicism. But please, wait. When you hear the words philosophy or Stoicism, you might picture cold stone statues, dusty, incomprehensible books, or advice about suppressing all emotion. That's a common misconception. Set that image aside. Think of Stoicism in a different way, as a toolkit, a practical set of tools designed for soldiers, politicians, artists, parents, people who face the chaos of real life every day. It's not a philosophy for the monastery, it's a philosophy for the battlefield of life. What's incredible is that these tools, honed over 2,000 years ago, are now being validated again and again by modern neuroscience and psychology. What Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote for himself in his military tent, we can now see reflected in fMRI scans, showing how our brains change when we practice these principles. So, in this video, we won't just talk about dry philosophy. We will open that toolbox together. We will explore 7 morning practices, 7 mental compasses you can use to navigate this complex modern world. They aren't magical overnight solutions, but sturdy anchors to help you find stability, clarity, and most importantly, a deep sense of purpose. This journey doesn't ask you to become someone else. It asks you to return to the truest version of yourself. And we will begin that journey right now. The anchor of purpose. Let's start with the first compass, and perhaps the most important one. It's not a tool to point the way, but something to keep you steady in a storm. We call it the anchor of purpose. Among the comments you've shared, one confession truly touched me. A 36-year-old man wrote that he wakes up every day without a purpose, and that terrible feeling has followed him for years. He felt he couldn't go on like this. If you are listening to this and feel a heartbreaking familiarity in those words, I want you to know, you are not alone, and it is not your fault. The modern world, with its endless choices and pressures to succeed, has a strange way of making us lose our way. We chase the goals set for us, a good job, a nice house, a happy family, and we believe that when we achieve them, we will feel complete. But then one day, we arrive at the destination and realize the emptiness is still there. That's because we have confused goals with purpose. Goals are the things you achieve. Purpose is the reason you exist. Imagine your boat in the middle of a turbulent ocean. The waves are the unavoidable stresses of life, a bad meeting, an unexpected bill, an argument with a loved one, or simply the daily stream of negative news. Goals are like trying to row quickly to a distant island. But purpose is your anchor. The anchor doesn't make the storm disappear. The waves will still crash, the wind will still blow. But the anchor will keep your boat from being swept away aimlessly, from capsizing in the chaotic waters. It holds you there, steady, until the sky clears. This isn't just a beautiful metaphor. This is a scientifically proven reality. Researchers in leading behavioral science journals have found that people with a clear sense of purpose have what they call a psychological buffer. What does this mean? It means that on the most stressful days, people with a purpose are less negatively affected. They feel less anxiety and suffer fewer physical symptoms caused by stress. Purpose doesn't prevent bad things from happening, but it changes how we experience them. It gives us a reason to endure, a reason to keep moving forward. So how do we find that anchor? This is where many of us feel overwhelmed. We think purpose has to be something grand, a world-changing mission like Mother Teresa's or Steve Jobs's. That pressure paralyzes us. But the Stoics teach us the opposite. Purpose isn't found in some distant star. It's found right at your feet, in your daily actions. Forget the question, what is my purpose in life? Set it aside for now. Instead, start with simpler, more specific questions. Take out a notebook, and take a few minutes to answer these questions as honestly as you can. What truly matters to you, at the deepest level? Not what you think should be important, but what actually makes your heart resonate. Is it creativity? Compassion? Justice? Learning? Or building strong relationships? List them out. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most proud of yourself. When were they? What were you doing? It's very likely that in those moments, you were acting in alignment with one of the core values you just wrote down. And this is the most important step. Ask yourself, based on these values, what is the smallest action I can take today to express them? This is the key. Purpose is not a noun, it's a verb. It's not something you find, it's something you build, one brick at a time. Maybe your value is compassion. Your purpose doesn't have to be to save the world. Your small action today might simply be to listen to a struggling colleague without judgment. Maybe your value is growth. Your action today could be to spend 20 minutes reading a book instead of scrolling through social media. Maybe your value is connection. Your action could be to call your parents, not out of obligation, but because you genuinely want to hear their voices. Consider this story. There was a woman in the financial industry. She was successful, made a lot of money, but woke up every morning feeling empty. She thought she hated her job. But after doing this exercise, she realized one of her core values was creating order from chaos to help others feel secure. Her job as an accountant, in essence, was exactly that. The problem wasn't the job, it was that she had lost connection with why she did it. She began to change her perspective. Instead of thinking, I have to go to work to process numbers, she thought, today, I will help my clients feel more secure about their financial future. She also started spending her weekends helping a local charity organize their books. It was the same skill, applied in a way that resonated completely with her values. Her life changed, not because she switched jobs, but because she found her anchor again. So, your first morning meditation isn't to sit still and try to empty your mind. Your first meditation is a simple question upon waking: today, which of my values will I embody? What small action will be the first brick? When you start living this way, something magical happens. The feeling of emptiness begins to fade. Fatigue is replaced by a new source of energy. You are no longer swept away by the storms of life, because you know that no matter how big the waves get, your anchor is holding you steady. You are living with purpose. Not some grand future purpose, but a living, breathing purpose, right here, right now. The art of observation. Once you have your anchor holding you steady in the ocean, the next step isn't to try to control the weather. You can't. The next step is to learn to read the waves, understand the winds, and recognize the undercurrents flowing beneath the surface. You can't control them, but you can learn not to be drowned by them. And it all begins with a seemingly passive act that holds extraordinary power: the art of observation. Perhaps you've heard of this concept through words like mindfulness or meditation. And maybe, like many people, you feel a little intimidated. We imagine having to sit for hours in silence, trying to force our minds to be empty, an impossible task for the 21st century human brain, which is wired to solve problems, plan, and worry. Let me make this clear from the start: the art of observation is not about stopping your thoughts. It's not a war against your mind. On the contrary, it's about signing a peace treaty with it. It's not about silencing your mind, but learning to listen to what it's saying from a safe distance. The psychologist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl famously wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." That space. That is where the art of observation exists. That is your playground, the place where you take back your power. Imagine a very familiar situation. You open your email in the morning and see a message from your boss pointing out a mistake in a project you spent weeks on. Instantly, a whirlwind of emotions erupts. That's the stimulus. What is your automatic response? A hot wave of anger runs down your spine. A sense of defensiveness rises. It wasn't entirely my fault. Anxiety creeps in. Am I going to be judged poorly? Your heart starts to beat faster. Your muscles tense. Your fingers itch to type a harsh reply, to defend yourself. This is our million-year-old survival mechanism at work. But what if, just for a moment, you could create a space? What if, instead of being swept away by that whirlwind, you could take a step back and simply watch it? This is where neuroscience gives us an incredible insight. When you receive that email, the first part of your brain to react is the amygdala. Think of it as the brain's fire alarm. It's extremely fast, extremely sensitive, and its job is to detect threats and trigger the fight or flight response. It doesn't care about context or nuance. It just sees danger. Meanwhile, there's another part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. Think of this as the company's CEO, the wise adult in the room. It's slower, more rational, and capable of considering options, evaluating consequences, and making sound decisions. When we react automatically, the fire alarm is running the whole building. But the art of observation is the act of you saying, "Okay, I hear the fire alarm. Let's calmly see what's really happening before we spray water everywhere." When you step back and say to yourself, "This is the feeling of anger. I can feel it in my chest. How interesting," you are doing something extraordinary. You are activating your prefrontal cortex. The simple act of naming the emotion, "This is anxiety," begins to calm the amygdala. You are shifting from being the anger to observing the anger. And in that tiny space, your power and freedom are born. You can now choose, do I need to reply to this email immediately? Or should I take a walk and come back with a cooler head? So how do we practice this ability? It begins with a very simple morning practice. Set aside just 5 minutes. No more is needed. Sit down in a quiet place. Step 1, close your eyes and simply notice your breath. Feel the air coming in and going out. Your breath is the anchor for your attention, just as purpose is the anchor for your life. Step 2, your mind will wander. This is 100% certain. It will think about your to-do list, about yesterday's conversation, about what you'll have for lunch. This is not a failure. This is part of the exercise. Step 3, the moment you realize your mind has wandered, the moment you say, "I'm lost in thought," that is the moment you have succeeded. That is a bicep curl for your awareness muscle. Step 4, gently, and this is the most important word, gently, without judgment, without self-criticism, you simply guide your attention back to your breath. Repeat this over and over. Each time you notice you've strayed and gently return, you are strengthening your prefrontal cortex. You are widening that space a little more. But the morning meditation is just the gym. The real game is played throughout the day. Bring the art of observation into your life. When the phone rings, let it ring one more time. In that moment, observe the urge to answer immediately. Before entering a tense meeting, take one conscious breath. When you're waiting at a red light, instead of grabbing your phone, just observe the world around you. A father once shared that he used to get angry with his children when they were loud and messy after a long day at work. He felt guilty but couldn't control it. After practicing observation, he learned to recognize the first wave of irritation rising in his chest. He saw it as a dark cloud rolling in. He was not the cloud. He was the sky. He would take a deep breath, and instead of yelling, he would speak calmly but firmly. His relationship with his children changed completely, not because the kids became better behaved, but because he learned to observe his own inner world. The art of observation is the foundational tool in our kit. It's the ability to see clearly what is really happening, both inside and out, before we decide what to do about it. It brings clarity. And when you have clarity, you can begin to use the next tool effectively. That is the compass of reason. The compass of reason. So, you've created that precious space. You can stand on the edge of your own emotional storm and watch it without being swept away. You see the anger, the anxiety, or the disappointment rising. You have clarity. But what do you do in that space? What do you do with that clarity? How do you decide which way to steer your ship? This is when you pull out the next tool from your kit. A tool the Stoics considered humanity's greatest gift, the thing that separates us from all other creatures. That is the compass of reason. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, a man who was once a slave and rose to become one of the most respected teachers of his time, said something simple but life-changing: men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Read that sentence again. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. This is one of the most profound insights into human psychology. Our suffering rarely comes from an objective event. It comes from the story we tell ourselves about that event. It comes from the layer of judgment, interpretation, and assumption that we overlay onto raw reality. Let's go back to the example of your boss's email. The objective fact, the thing, is, an email was sent, which pointed out an error in a document. This is a neutral piece of data. It's not good, not bad. It simply is. But what is the story you tell yourself? My boss thinks I'm incompetent. He's looking for a reason to fire me. My career is over. I'm a failure. Do you see the difference? The event is finite and specific. The story is limitless and emotionally charged. And it's the story, not the event, that causes the knot in your stomach, that keeps you up at night. The Stoics called this process the discipline of assent. It means we have the ability to examine our initial impressions, the automatic stories that pop into our heads, and consciously choose whether or not to assent to them. Whether or not to believe them. Using the compass of reason is about becoming a gatekeeper for your mind, an investigative journalist for your own stories. And this gatekeeper's job is to ask sharp questions. This is your meditation, the way you use reason as a practical tool. When a strong emotion arises, use the space you created through observation to ask these questions. First question: in this situation, what is actually within my control, and what is not? This is the foundational question of Stoicism. You cannot control your boss sending the email. You cannot control his thoughts. But you absolutely can control how you interpret that email, and how you respond to it. This question immediately pulls your focus away from blaming others and back to your own power. Second question: is my initial impression based on objective reality, or is it just a story I'm telling myself? Be your own lawyer. Where is the evidence? The fact is my boss pointed out a mistake. The story is he thinks I'm incompetent. What is the evidence for that story? Are there other possible interpretations? Maybe he simply wants the project to be perfect. Maybe he's having a bad day. Maybe he trusts you are capable enough to receive feedback and fix it. When you start looking for alternative explanations, the power of the initial story weakens. Third question: is believing this story helpful? Does assenting to it serve my long-term purpose? This question connects directly to your anchor. If your purpose is to be a professional who is reliable and constantly learning, does wallowing in anger and defensiveness help you achieve that? Or would calmly acknowledging the mistake, fixing it, and learning from it serve you better? Reason will help you choose the action that aligns with the person you want to become. Consider another example, one perhaps even more common in personal life. You're scrolling through social media and see that a close friend threw a party and didn't invite you. The initial impression, the automatic story, she doesn't like me anymore. I've been excluded. This friendship is over. The feeling of hurt and resentment immediately swells up. Now, let's use the compass of reason. Control. I can't control her guest list. But I can control how I interpret this and whether I destroy a friendship over an assumption. Fact versus story. The fact is I wasn't at that party. The story is she intentionally excluded me with malicious intent. What are other possibilities? Maybe it was a small party for a specific group, e.g., old work colleagues. Maybe she thought you were busy. Maybe she simply made an oversight. Maybe she feels bad about it herself. The moment you acknowledge these possibilities, the "I am the victim" story begins to crack. Helpfulness. Does sitting here and nursing this resentment help our friendship? No. It's poisoning it from my end. So what is the rational action? It might be to do nothing, recognizing that not everything is about you. Or, if the friendship is truly important, the rational action might be to reach out to that friend, not to accuse, but to connect. A simple text, "Hey, saw pics of your party, looked like fun. How have you been? Let's grab coffee this weekend." This action comes from a place of strength and security, not weakness and insecurity. The compass of reason is not a tool to suppress emotions. Emotions are part of being human. It is a tool to keep you from becoming a slave to those emotions. It allows you to acknowledge your feeling, "I am feeling hurt," and then use your higher intelligence to decide what to do next. Your morning meditation for this tool is a thinking exercise. Think of a small worry that's on your mind. Then, write down the answers to those 3 questions. What can I control? What is fact, and what is story? What action would serve my purpose? When you practice this daily, you are doing something extraordinary. You are rewiring your mind to seek truth instead of drama, solutions instead of blame, and wisdom instead of suffering. But knowing the right direction isn't enough. Between knowing what to do and actually doing it, there is often a great chasm. To cross that chasm, we need the final tool in our internal toolkit. A tool that helps us turn thought into action. That is courage. The courage to act. You've done the hard work. You've observed your emotions. You've used reason to separate fact from fiction. You've identified the wise course of action, the path that aligns with your deepest values and purpose. You have the map. But then, a terrifying pause occurs. The pause between knowing and doing. You know you need to have that difficult conversation with your partner. But you stay silent, for fear of conflict. You know you need to set a boundary with your overly demanding boss. But you nod and agree, for fear of disappointing them. You know you need to apologize, to admit you were wrong. But you let pride win, for fear of being seen as weak. You know you need to start that small project, write the first pages of that book, or sign up for that class. But you procrastinate, for fear of failure, for fear of judgment. That gap between knowing and doing, it is filled with fear. And to build a bridge across the chasm of fear, we need a virtue that has been admired by humanity for millennia. That is the courage to act. When we talk about courage, the image that probably comes to mind is a soldier charging onto a battlefield or a firefighter rushing into a burning building. That is certainly courage. But for most of us, in the daily lives of 21st century adults, our battlefields look very different. Our battlefield is a tense meeting where you need to speak up for your ideas. Our battlefield is a phone call where you need to speak the truth with compassion. Our battlefield is a blank page where you must face your self-doubt to write the first words. Our battlefield is the mirror in the morning, where you have to face the person you've become and decide if you have the courage to become the person you want to be. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the most famous Stoic, redefined courage perfectly. He didn't see it as the absence of fear. That's impossible. Instead, he saw courage as the ability to act despite fear. It's feeling the tremble in your knees, the drumbeat in your chest, and still taking one step forward. Why? Because your purpose, your reason, is bigger than your fear. Every time we know the right thing to do but fail to do it out of fear, we pay an invisible price. It's not money. It's something far more valuable, our own self-respect. Each time you back down, a small part of your soul erodes. You are sending a message to your subconscious: my comfort is more important than my integrity. My safety is more important than my growth. Over the years, that price compounds, and it leaves a feeling of emptiness, a deep dissatisfaction with who you are. That is the price of cowardice. So, how do we cultivate this virtue? Like the other tools, it starts with a deliberate morning practice. Step 1: Identify and name the fear. In the quiet of the morning, think of one area in your life where you are hesitating. And ask yourself honestly, what specific fear is holding me back? Name it. Don't just say, I'm scared. Say, I'm afraid of being rejected. I'm afraid of looking stupid. I'm afraid of rocking the boat. I'm afraid I will try my best and still fail. Naming the fear takes away its mystical power. It turns an invisible monster into a concrete opponent you can face. Step 2: Reconnect with your anchor. Now, counterbalance that fear with your purpose. Why is this action, though scary, important? What core value of yours does it serve? Having this difficult conversation is scary, but my value is authentic connection, and authenticity requires honesty. Starting this project is scary, but my value is creativity, and I can't be creative if I don't dare to risk. Let your why become bigger than your fear. Step 3: Identify the smallest possible action. This is the antidote to paralysis. Fear often makes us look at the entire daunting journey and feel overwhelmed. Don't do that. Break it down into the smallest, most manageable, least scary step possible. You don't have to have a fiery confrontation. The smallest step might be, write down the 3 main points I want to say calmly on a piece of paper. You don't have to quit my job and start a business. The smallest step might be, spend 30 minutes tonight researching an idea. You don't have to write a novel. The smallest step might be, write 100 words. Anyone can take a small action. And that small action creates momentum. It proves to you that you can act despite your fear. Consider the story of Mark, a 42-year-old man. He had a stable job in marketing, a job that paid well but made him feel dead inside. His secret dream was to work with his hands, to open a small woodworking shop. But fear had held him back for a decade. I have a family to support, a mortgage to pay. What if I fail? One day, he decided to apply this toolkit. He observed his feeling of emptiness. He used reason to confirm that his values were craftsmanship, creativity, and autonomy, things his current job couldn't provide. He knew the right path was to make a change. And then he hit the wall of fear. He named it, the fear of financial instability and the fear of failure. Then, he connected with his anchor: I want my kids to see their father living a life of passion, not just sleepwalking through his days. I want them to see that it's possible to pursue something meaningful. Finally, he identified the smallest action. He didn't quit his job. He didn't take out a huge loan. His smallest action was, to clean out a corner of his garage. The next week, the smallest action was to buy a used handsaw. The week after that, he spent a Saturday morning making a simple cutting board. He felt the fear, but he did it anyway. Gradually, step by step, those small actions built the bridge of courage. A few years later, Mark has a small online shop selling his handcrafted wooden items. He hasn't quit his day job yet, but he no longer feels empty. He has become someone who acts in spite of fear. He has become a courageous man. And so, our internal toolkit is complete. Observation gives you clarity. Reason gives you direction. And courage gives you action. They are a powerful trio, a complete operating system for facing any challenge life throws at you, from within or without. When you have equipped yourself with these tools, you are not merely surviving the day. You are ready to truly live a meaningful life. And that will shape how you present yourself to the world. Finding joy through gratitude. With the anchor of purpose holding you steady, and the toolkit of observation, reason, and courage in hand, you are now equipped to face the inevitable storms of life. You have learned how to endure, how to face challenges, how to act wisely. But life isn't just about endurance. It's not just about getting through the storm. It's also about learning to dance in the rain and to fully enjoy the sunshine when it appears. It's about finding joy, not in some distant destination, but right here in the journey itself, even when the path is rough and rocky. This brings us to the first principle of living a meaningful life outward. It's not a complex idea. In fact, it's so simple we often overlook it. It is, finding joy through gratitude. Now, I know what you might be thinking. In a world full of cliché advice about positive thinking, the word gratitude can make you feel a bit skeptical. We are not talking about ignoring the real problems in your life or pretending everything is perfect. We are not talking about toxic positivity. The joy of a Stoic is not a shallow smile on the surface. It is a deep state of peace and contentment from within, a state that is not dependent on external circumstances. And gratitude is the gateway to that state. It's no surprise that in the comments you shared, so many people used the word gratideo, gratitude. It's like a natural reflex when we connect with something true. That's because, at the deepest level, we know that focusing on what we have, rather than what we lack, brings peace. But this isn't just a warm, fuzzy feeling. This is a biochemical intervention. Our modern lives are designed to keep us in a constant state of low-grade stress. The constant notifications from our phones, the 24/7 news cycle, work pressures, financial worries, all of these things keep the levels of cortisol, the distress hormone, consistently high in our bodies. This state, prolonged over years, leads to burnout, anxiety, and the feeling that we are always on the edge of a cliff. Gratitude is a direct antidote to this condition. When you practice gratitude deliberately, you are doing something extraordinary for your brain. Scientists have shown that the act of focusing on gratitude activates the brain's reward system, releasing dopamine and serotonin, the feel-good neurotransmitters. Simply put, you cannot feel grateful and anxious at the same time. Here's the key point: gratitude is not a passive emotion that comes and goes. It is an active practice that helps you change your brain chemistry. It's like a workout for the happiness centers of your brain. This isn't wishful positive thinking, this is an exercise that changes your physiology. So how do we do this exercise? It's very simple. You don't need to meditate for hours. You just need a notebook and 2 minutes each evening. Before you go to sleep, write down 3 specific things you were grateful for that day. The key here is specificity. Don't just write, "I'm grateful for my family." That's too general. Write, "I'm grateful for the moment my daughter burst out laughing at my lame joke this morning." Don't just write, "I'm grateful for my job." Write, "I'm grateful for the colleague who brought me a cup of coffee when she saw I was stressed." This specificity brings back the image and the feeling of that moment, and that's what triggers the chemical response in your brain. When you start doing this, you are actively reprogramming your brain. The human brain has what's called a negativity bias. For survival reasons, we tend to focus on what's wrong, on potential threats. Our brain is like Velcro for bad experiences and Teflon for good ones, the good stuff just slides right off. This nightly gratitude practice reverses that process. It trains your brain to start actively scanning for the good in your day. Consider the story of Sarah, a 45-year-old nurse. She felt completely burned out. Her job was filled with stress, sickness, and administrative procedures. She began to feel like the whole world was just gray. She started a gratitude journal, though she was full of skepticism. The first day, she struggled. She wrote, 1. The coffee this morning. 2. A patient said thank you. 3. The traffic wasn't too bad. After 2 weeks, she started noticing more. 1. 10 minutes of silence in my car before my shift. 2. A colleague brought me a cookie. 3. I successfully started a difficult 4. After a month, her perspective had shifted. She wasn't less tired, the job was just as stressful. But she was less bitter. She started her workday with a new subconscious mission, to find the small moments of kindness, of connection, of success. She had found joy within her difficult journey, not by escaping from it. Gratitude doesn't change the world around you. It changes how you see that world. And that change is everything. It is the foundation of a durable joy, a joy that isn't shaken by the ups and downs of life. When you begin to feel genuine gratitude for your life, even with its imperfections, something natural happens. You want to live that life with authenticity. You want your actions to reflect your deepest values. And that brings us to the next principle of a meaningful life, integrity. Integrity in action. When you start to feel a genuine gratitude for your life, for every moment of it, you begin to care deeply about how you live that life. You want to honor it. You want your actions, your words, and even your most private thoughts to be true. You want to feel whole. This brings us to one of the core concepts of a good life, a word we often hear but rarely pause to understand its full depth. That is integrity in action. The word integrity shares the same root as the word integer, meaning a whole, undivided, unbroken thing. A life of integrity is a life that is whole. It is a beautiful state where there is no difference between the person you present to the outside world and the person you truly are on the inside. It's when the values you say you believe in, the thoughts you know are right, and the actions you take every day are all in perfect alignment. It is the antidote to hypocrisy. It is the commitment to being the same person, whether you're in the boardroom with your boss or alone in your room at midnight. Think of integrity like a well-built house. The foundation is your values. The walls are your thoughts. And the roof is your actions. When everything is aligned and fits together, that house is solid. It can withstand storms and time. A house without integrity, where the foundation is one way and the roof another, might still look okay from the outside. But inside, it's full of cracks, and it will shudder violently at the slightest pressure. So many of us are living in houses like that. And we feel the cost of it every day. The cost of a lack of integrity is the constant stress of having to wear different masks for different people. It's the mental exhaustion of trying to remember what lie you told to whom. It's that quiet self-loathing when you say, yes, while your entire being is screaming, no. It's the cognitive dissonance when you complain about a certain behavior in others while secretly tolerating it in yourself. Living without integrity is like a constant civil war inside your soul. It consumes an enormous amount of energy, leaving you always feeling anxious and insecure, because deep down, you know you are betraying yourself. Integrity is not perfection. Don't be mistaken. You will still make mistakes. Integrity is about acknowledging those mistakes, taking responsibility for them, and trying to do better next time. It is a commitment to the truth. And this is where our entire internal toolkit comes into play. You cannot have integrity without it. You need observation to recognize the moments when you are about to act inconsistently. To notice the urge to tell a white lie or to take a shortcut. You need reason to ask yourself, is this action in line with my values? Does it help me become the person I want to be? And you need courage to choose the right action, even when it's harder, less convenient, or less popular. So, what is the morning practice for integrity? It's a brief but powerful audit. Step 1, reaffirm your values. Start your morning by reminding yourself of your anchor. Today, I want to be a patient father. Today, I want to be a compassionate leader. Today, I want to be an honest friend. Step 2, anticipate the challenges. Think about the day ahead. Where are the likely points of friction? A difficult meeting? A conversation with a loved one? An opportunity to cut a corner that no one would know about. Step 3. Pre-commit to an act of integrity. This is an incredibly effective psychological technique. Decide in advance how you will act in that situation to maintain your integrity. In this afternoon's meeting, even if it's uncomfortable, I will speak up to defend my team member's idea, because my value is fairness. Or, when my spouse asks for my opinion, I will tell the truth kindly, because my values are honesty and compassion. This pre-programs your brain. It's like setting a moral compass for the day. Consider the story of David, a manager. The values he was most proud of were fairness and team development. However, under pressure from his superiors, he often pushed that pressure down onto his employees, and sometimes, in big meetings, he presented their ideas as his own. He felt like a fraud. The internal civil war caused him to lose sleep and be constantly irritable. He started practicing the morning integrity audit. His commitment: today, I will act like the fair and supportive leader I want to be. He anticipated the new project presentation meeting in the afternoon. The moment of choice arrived. His big boss was in the room. The old habit, the easy path, was to stand up and present it himself. But because of his prior commitment, he felt a new resolve. He took a deep breath and said, "I'd like to turn it over to Susan and her team, who did the absolutely brilliant work on this project." The immediate result might have been that he received less personal praise. But the long-term result was priceless. That night, for the first time in months, David slept soundly. The internal civil war was over. He had earned the true respect of his team. And most importantly, he could look in the mirror and respect the man he saw. He felt whole. He felt at peace. That is the reward of integrity. It is not wealth or fame. It is a deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing you are living an authentic life. And when you live a life of purpose and integrity, when you feel joy and gratitude from within, you no longer have to try to be a positive influence. You simply are one. This brings us to the final and most natural principle in this journey: becoming a beacon. Becoming a beacon. When you live with an anchor of purpose keeping you steady. When you master the internal toolkit to observe clearly, think rationally, and act courageously. When you find joy in daily life through the lens of gratitude, and when you walk through the world with complete integrity. A magical thing happens. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. But it is incredibly powerful. You realize that you stop absorbing the darkness from the world around you, and instead, you begin to emit your own light. This is not a task to be completed. It is the final and most natural consequence of our journey. That is, becoming a beacon. Again, let go of the cliché images. Becoming a beacon doesn't mean you have to become a sage, a saint, or a perpetually cheerful person spouting inspirational quotes. In fact, it's almost the exact opposite. It's not about what you do, but about who you become. Imagine a lighthouse. A lighthouse doesn't run along the coast looking for ships in distress. It doesn't shout instructions. It simply stands firm on its foundation of rock, and it shines. It does not try to be useful. It is useful because its very nature is light. Its light allows other ships to orient themselves, to find safe passage through dangerous waters. Becoming a beacon is just like that. When you have done the hard work of cleaning up your own inner world, your peace and strength automatically radiate outward. It's the calm in your voice during a tense meeting, which makes others feel calmer too. It's the patience you show an overwhelmed cashier, a small act that might be the only bright spot in their day. It's the ability to listen fully to a friend in crisis, without judgment, without trying to fix their problem, but simply offering them a safe space to be heard. It's the stability that your family and colleagues feel when they are around you. They know that no matter how chaotic the world gets, you are a reliable presence, someone who will respond with wisdom instead of impulse. The Stoics had a beautiful concept for this: sympathia. It's the idea that all things in the universe are intricately connected, that we are all part of a single living organism. When you heal and strengthen yourself, you are not just doing it for yourself. You are, by default, healing and strengthening the small part of the world that you touch. Your inner peace has a ripple effect outward. How do we practice this? The good news is, you don't have to do anything extra. It's a result. But you can bring this intention into your morning meditation. Instead of asking, "What do I have to do today?" ask, "How will I show up today?" Today, how can I bring calm instead of chaos? Today, how can I ask a good question instead of giving a hasty opinion? Today, how can I offer someone the benefit of the doubt instead of suspicion? It's not about grand gestures. It's about the quality of your presence in the small moments. It's choosing not to participate in gossip. It's genuinely celebrating someone else's success, without a hint of envy. It's being the person whose presence makes the room feel a little more at ease, not more tense. Let's go back to the story of Sarah, the nurse who was once burned out. As she filled herself with gratitude and acted with integrity, she began to change. One day, a new, young nurse was struggling and anxious. The old Sarah might have ignored her, seeing her as another burden. But the new Sarah, the beacon, approached. She didn't lecture. She just calmly showed the young woman a technique, offered a gentle word of encouragement. "You're doing great." We've all been there. That small act may have changed the young nurse's entire day, maybe even her week. It made her feel competent and supported. And in turn, she was more patient with her next patient. The light spread. Sarah wasn't trying to be a mentor. She simply was one, because her internal state had changed. That is the culmination of the Stoic journey. It begins from within, with finding your purpose. It is fortified by the internal toolkit of observation, reason, and courage. It is expressed outwardly through gratitude and integrity. And the final, natural, and beautiful result is that you become a beacon for those around you. You become the person who, when they leave an encounter with you, feels a little bit better than they did before. And perhaps, there is no greater legacy than that. Conclusion. And so, our journey through these 7 Stoic meditations comes to an end. But hopefully, this is not an end, but a beginning. We started in a place that is perhaps very familiar to many, a quiet sense of bewilderment, the feeling of drifting through one's own life. We asked an honest question: is this all there is? From there, we rebuilt our foundation together. We found the anchor of purpose, not as a grand destination, but as a daily commitment to our deepest values. Once we were steady, we equipped ourselves with the internal toolkit. We learned to use observation to gain clarity, to see reality as it is. We took up the compass of reason to choose our path wisely, distinguishing truth from stories created by fear. And we found the courage to act, to build the bridge between knowing and doing. With that foundation and toolkit, we learned to live a meaningful life outward. We discovered how to find true joy through gratitude, changing our brain chemistry simply by focusing on what we have. We felt the unshakable peace of integrity, when our actions and values became one. And finally, we realized that when all of this is practiced, we naturally become a beacon for those around us. It is a complete journey, from inner healing to outward expression. It's not a list of life hacks, but an operating system for a good life. Before we finish, I want to leave you with one last question. This question isn't for me, or for the algorithm. It's for you. Take a quiet moment and be honest with yourself. Of the 7 compasses we've explored today, purpose, observation, reason, courage, gratitude, integrity, and becoming a beacon, which one do you feel you need the most, right now in your life? Maybe it's the anchor of purpose, because you feel adrift. Maybe it's courage, because you're facing a critical turning point and you're afraid. Maybe it's simply gratitude, to find the joy in everyday things again. There is no wrong answer. But the act of choosing one, the act of knowing where you need to begin, is the first powerful step. That is the moment you stop being a passenger and become the captain of your own life. If you feel comfortable sharing, please leave your answer in the comments below. Reading those shares is a powerful reminder that we are all on the same journey, just working on different parts of our own paths. That companionship is priceless. Finally, if today's journey has brought you any value, if it has given you a moment of clarity or a tool you can use, there are 2 small ways you can help spread it. First, by liking this video, you are telling the algorithm that this conversation is valuable, and it will be shown to more people who might be feeling just like you did at the start of this video. And second, if you want to continue this journey with us, please consider subscribing to the channel. We are building a community of people dedicated to living deeper, more meaningful lives, and we would be honored to have you with us. Thank you for your precious time and attention today. Live well, and be a beacon.